Cindy, we were talking about career paths today, and we're talking about different ways of educational opportunities. I'm kind of curious because I thought it was kind of interesting how you've come into this role at your university. Could you talk a little bit about how you've come to the position you're in now at Texas A&M?
Great. So I spent my background is actually in business and education. Probably spent the last 30 years of my career working in higher education and various universities. But one of the things I've worked in city government, I taught middle school for a little while, and then I've taught college level courses and technical writing, communication type things. But I've worked a lot with industry to match up students with internships or full-time positions and things like that. And what I've found is that my passion for workforce development and education basically comes for preparing students to go out into the real world. I wanted to be able to create some kind of pathway that anybody can do anything they want, kind of follow any dream, make your dreams happen.
Well, I appreciate that, Cindy, and certainly we can talk more about this and how you're trying to do that. Because you introduced a phrase to me which I really like, which is cradle to gray, and gray is in the color, and that how the College of Engineering there has certainly, it's not new to the idea of preparing folks for the workforce. It's long been the focus in many ways, making sure folks are prepared for their careers. But you're doing more there. You're investing more in this cradle to gray approach. I'm kind of curious, what are you trying to work on there? What's the focus? What's the opportunity you see when it comes to putting some investments behind this approach that you describe again as cradle to gray?
So one of the things I found out early in my career is that technology changes. It changes quickly. And higher education always doesn't change quickly. We go out, we get our degree, but we can provide a great foundation. So one of the things that we found is that we need to really provide for both our students, whether they're already in college or whether it's students coming up through the pipeline, critical thinking, problem solving skills to get them ready and able to adapt to some of these new technologies. And what we found is that there's also opportunities that current employees need, current employers, maybe they have a new field that's coming up and they need, shifting employees, they need to upskill or reskill their employees. So what we found, research suggests, and I was caught the end of your other conversation about, it's hard in middle school to figure out what's going on, but research really does suggest that in middle school is when students really start forming their academic career paths. So that's when your critical thinking comes in. They start developing abstract thinking. The other advantage is in middle school is when they don't think they can do anything. They never have no fear of I can't do that. So that's when we really want to get them excited. So what we've done here is developed an entire, as I call, cradle to gray approach. We have pre-K 12 students that we go out and do education. We get them excited. We foster environment. We support the teachers in professional development. We do work with community colleges. We also do work with our 4 years, our technical school partners. And then we also go out into industry, the professionals, and really spend some time upskilling or reskilling them on new technologies that are coming along.
Yeah, I appreciate that point about the middle school. And can we talk a little bit about that? Because I think as we're talking about this spectrum of cradle to gray, let's talk with the younger, and then we kind of move to undergraduate, then talk a little bit more about the upskilling, because I'd like to hear a little bit more about all of that. In the area you mentioned about working with the sort of the pipeline from secondary school, what I heard and understood that you were kind of providing some specific sort of discipline-focused education to some teachers so they can teach some engineering concepts, at least introduce them at a younger age as well. Which I can imagine may excite some students at an earlier age for a potential that they may not see. As you said, they don't know the word no yet, or don't have a limit on what their dreams may be. So they might be a good time to introduce them to some new ideas and concepts they may not have thought of yet around engineering.
Exactly. And so our K through 12 outreach program is actually called Spark, because we are actually going out there and sparking their initiative, sparking their interest in what's going on. But you also have to kind of foster that a little bit. So we have a traveling roadshow. We go across the state. We actually are spreading out a little bit outside of Texas, and we do some national things. But our traveling roadshow goes into the schools, and Texas is very rural. A lot of places, the urban cities can have a lot of activity, but the rural don't get a lot of this. But we go out all across Texas. We take our traveling roadshow, and we really get the kids excited. So we show these things that they do in all of our fields, in nuclear and electrical engineering and semiconductors and all of these great fields that are going on. But one of the things that we do a little bit different, it's great to come in and get the kids excited. But what we do is we will stay an extra day and we will do some professional development for the teachers. So we will give them curriculum. We will give them some of the exciting things that they can incorporate throughout their classroom, throughout all of their others courses they teach, so that they can incorporate that not just after we leave, so they can, incorporate that way after we leave. We do courses in things like advanced manufacturing, coding, and robots, 3D printing, invention education. So we're also trying to align to a lot of our standards, our science standards, for what the Texas Education Agency does. So this past year, just out on our roadshow, the Spark team has been out and engaged over 18,000 students and over 7,000 teachers that we have trained just alone. One of the other things we have with that program as part of that is we are home to the State Science and Engineering Fair. And believe me, I can tell you, so Texas we bring the top 1,000 students here across the state every year. I can tell you it's not volcanoes anymore like it was in my day. These
Right.
are really cutting edge research things for high school and middle school kids. And then our students go out to compete in the International Science Fair. And this last year, our Texas students won over 300,000 in prize money. So apparently we're doing something right to get them excited in the middle school.
Yeah, could you just paint a picture quickly about what the roadshow may look like? Do you bring a truck? Do you bring it is it
So
experiments?
we actually have both. We have a large Sprinter van, and we
Mm,
are labeled everything. Texas A&M, when we come to town, we have
right.
a large Sprinter van that goes out, and we also have a 26-foot trailer that is pulled, and it kind of unfolds. So we can come out and we can bring 3D printers. We have little robots. We do about robots that we do. We teach them coding out there. We have little activities. We have Lego kits. We have Arduino kits, things that they can program and do stuff. We have nuclear experiments. So we have all these experiments, and we can go into the classroom and show us this. So it's kind of like, I show my age, but it's kind of like when the bookmobile used to drive up, and
I
the
remember
kids
those.
get really excited to see a bookmobile. But we can get them excited because we brand we're A&M, we do everything bigger. We brand everything big. So,
Right.
we roll into town.
Well, it sounds like a mobile makerspace practically.
That's
So I
exactly what it
appreciate that. I
is.
know Virginia would be a big drive from Texas, but my kids would probably enjoy seeing that as well and get them excited.
Yeah.
I want to move into the undergraduate space, certainly. So we've talked about, the beginning of that pipeline, if you will, and then getting into the pipeline. I know you've started some engineering academies that help sort of fuel some of the interest in the engineering and doing some other work as well. I'm just kind of curious if you could tell me a little bit more about those and what success you've had with them.
So in addition to our fantastic academic degrees we have here, we have really looked at creating that pathway. And in 2015, Texas A&M Engineering created a program. It's the first of its kind engineering program in the nation, and it's a co-enrollment program. It is a transition program. We've got
Mm,
partner community colleges. We started with 2 in 2015. We have 10 now. And the students are co-enrolled at both institutions, but they are Texas A&M Aggies from day one. So they take their core curriculum at the 2-year institution, their math courses, their science courses. But I actually hire a Texas A&M professor that is a professor of practice that we call. They have to have 10 years of direct industry experience so they can bring that real world to the classroom. But they are embedded at the 2-year college. So while the student is in the academy, they're dually enrolled, but they're taking their math and their sciences at the 2-year college. Our engineering faculty are teaching our engineering courses before they go out to the 2-year partners. When we hire somebody new, we make them stay here in College Station and actually train with our faculty. So our students at the academies are getting the exact same education in our engineering courses as they are here. The advantage of that is there's a large misconception about 2-year community colleges or technical schools. Many people think that students go to 2-year colleges because they're not good enough to get into 4-year institutions, and that's not the
mhm.
case. The typically reason students go to a 2-year institution is because of financial reasons, or they need to stay closer to home. So what we have found is that these engineering academies work really well because they pay 2-year tuition, which many times it's either free or very low cost, depending on what the program or what the state is and what location it is. And they pay that for those core courses, and then they only pay A&M tuition for the engineering course. They don't have to pay room and board because most of the time they live at home. The students can earn over 4.5 years. They stay 2 years at the academy at the dual location. They can save almost $40,000 over the course of a engineering undergraduate degree. We've seen a lot of success in this program. We've had since 2015, we've had over 900 graduates that are out. They are doing as well, if not some areas they do better than our students that start here at A&M with GPAs, the companies hire them. They're working at Fortune 500 companies right now.
Well, clearly there are benefits for the students that you just described. I'm curious. I guess I feel like I can hear in the audience someone saying, "Oh, I'd love to do this with my faculty, but they may not want to do it." How do you convince the faculty to kind of say, "Hey, this is really worthwhile"? And then also, how do you make sure you're maintaining the quality as you kind of add some potentially more programs that are off campus, off the Texas A&M, the main campuses or the satellite campuses, and working within the community colleges?
So that's great. So we actually we hire our faculty directly for this program. Though
Gotcha.
we have had some, as we're building new ones, we have had some of our tenure track faculty here or faculty here do go out and teach at these academies to start them up. But what we do is we really, as I said, we look for faculty that have had at least 10 years in industry because they are the
Right.
face of engineering. We want them to have that. We also go through any of the courses that we teach, our engineering courses. As I said, the faculty are trained here. So they go through the exact same courses. They are teaching the exact same courses. We also work with our partner community colleges and make sure that all of their math, their sciences, everything is vetted. We do a partnership so that the courses they are teaching are the exact same courses that are teaching here at the four-year institution. They transfer directly in. So we make sure everything is lined up as we go into this. So it is a seamless pathway. A lot of times students will transfer in from a two-year institution and have a lot of credits and things like that that don't count. By aligning this up in this dual and this co-enrollment program, everything they transfer in, we make sure it counts up front.
Yeah, the smoothing that pathway obviously is something long talked about, and obviously in this
Right.
case you've done that in many ways. I want to ask you a little bit about the hands-on career prep for your traditional bachelor's program. Something you've mentioned to me. This has come up again and again and again. We hear about the focus on trying to make sure that more undergraduates have some sort of career experience, whether it's internships or other opportunities. How have you done that at Texas A&M within the College of Engineering?
So we've heard for years that our engineering students that graduate with their undergraduate degree here are fantastic theoretical students, fantastic values, everything is great. But that one of the things that industry tells us that they sometimes lack are the hands-on experience that they can't
Yeah.
get, that they'll need to bring and get really started into the job quickly. So about 4 years ago, we created a program called the Bachelor's Plus program. And this is really a program designed for our current engineering students, but it's designed to give them practical skills that they may be lacking in technical fields so they can get real hands-on experience. So what we have set up is we have partners with some community colleges, some technical colleges across the state. Plus we do some courses here, but they can take, it's a 6 to 8 week immersion program in the summer. And the students are actually out doing hands-on activities. So we may be doing things like cybersecurity, they do advanced machining, they do welding processes, they do, with exotic metals. They'll do like additive manufacturing, 3D printing. They do a lot of AI type things. And then what they will do at the end of this is it gets them a credential, a micro credential, or a badge or certificate, depending on which course they take. And then when they graduate, they have this hands-on skill. So they are graduating with a bachelor's degree in engineering and whatever their discipline is, plus whatever this additional non-academic certificate or credential is. And we industry have been really excited about this program. It said it kind of puts them a leg up when they're competing for a job against all these other graduates. It shows them a little bit more. They can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I appreciate that example. As we started talking, we were talking about this cradle to gray, so the spectrum. We started off talking about the secondary school students, talked about a little bit how community colleges you're working with to get those students into the larger programs or the four-year programs. And then now we're talking about Bachelor's Plus, that is sort of the undergraduate experience and giving that more of sort of technical and hands-on career preparation. Let's talk about, I don't want to call it just the gray because many people are like my age, don't have too many grays here, I hope. But the idea of upskilling and those adult learners, I mean, this is a topic we could talk a lot about and probably should talk more about in some ways, just in terms of that's a great need and a population I know a lot of institutions are thinking more about as the demographic cliff comes and you see fewer college age students or traditional age college age students out there. So how are you all thinking about the upskilling and reskilling opportunities for your institution? How are you thinking about reaching that population? What do you think they need in terms of the skills that they want and how to serve them?
So we have our professional and continuing education group is called a TEDGE, EDGE, EDGE, and it stands for Educating Multiple Generations. And so that really expands beyond our students to working professionals, or sometimes it's even professionals that didn't, maybe a technician level that did not go to a four-year academic. But what we really look at is we work with industry to really identify what the skills gaps are. You know, it is changing quickly out there. As I said, sometimes higher ed takes a little bit longer to adapt. Great fundamental knowledge, but the new technologies that are popping out there. So we really work with industry to see what those needs are. A lot of times they will have employees that are fantastic employees, but they, you know, maybe they need some additional training for a new technology that's coming on. Semiconductor is a perfect example of this. You know, a lot of times automotive industry and the manufacturing side has a lot of skills that are very transferable to semiconductor that just need to be changed a little bit. So we take our subject matter experts either here at the university or out in industry, and we create short courses anywhere from 2 or 3 weeks long to a month or two long to really provide those opportunities. Maybe it's robotics, maybe it's AI, maybe it's 3D CAD design, cybersecurity, various kind of things to whatever their need is. And we can provide that while they're working. We work around their schedules. So it may be, as I said, a couple of days, it may be 3 evenings. So it's a very flexible, adaptable model to offer short courses and credentials to workers to fit the needs of the individual companies. We do both open enrollment to where we say, hey, we have this knowledge is out there, anybody can come take it across the US, or we work directly with industry sometimes. It says, hey, I have 50 workers that need this skill, let me, you know, come and do it, and we can adapt it. In that case, we can adapt it down a little closer to that individual.
Can I ask you something that Cindy's come up in some conversations we've had with some other institutions who may not be as far along when it comes to this idea of reaching that audience? I mean, how do you market to them? It mentioned sort of making and crafting the program so they're obviously short, and so that works within their work-life balance, works within their existing career or existing job. Just wondering how you kind of market to them. How do you kind of reach them? How do you make sure that they know these opportunities exist for them and that they are kind of catered to them, if you will? Just to say that some institutions who, again, may not have as much experience in this, I think we've heard some critiques where they feel like their marketing is still kind of geared toward that traditional age audience and may need to make sure, okay, you need to think differently about this group that's coming in that you want to have come into your classrooms or into your online classrooms.
So we work a lot with industry. So each of our 15 departments have individual advisory boards. The college has an advisory board. So we have industry that come back and sit on our boards. So we hear a lot with the industry about what they need, what their skills gaps are. We also do a lot of work in the communities, both even through, as I said, Spark is out across the road. Our whole workforce team is out across the state quite a bit. We also nationally are engaged with, we've got some federal grants that we do a lot of workforce training with, and various other organizations that we're part of. So we really listen to the industry, but the industry will also talk to their employees. So if we can provide these opportunities, we let them know we continually are out there. We do a lot of more posting on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been a very good part. We've got LinkedIn pages. We do a lot of the industries will work with professional organizations. So if we have a professional, semiconductor professional organization, mechanical engineering association. So we talk a lot to those to really market out what's out there so that we can know. So we're really trying to get our presence known of what we have. It's also, we try to make, we have found that websites are one of the easiest things or one of the hardest things to navigate and find. We want it to where it's really easy for somebody to say, I'm looking for training in X, and they can find it quickly because they're going to lose interest otherwise. So it's still a struggle we have, but I think we are getting better at it. But it is the more networking and the connections we make about what our new programs are and with the new direction we're going, or the opportunities that we have for both students. And it's never too late. It's never too late in your career to upskill and change directions.
I appreciate that, Cindy. And just on a final note, Cindy, you mentioned to me just how much of an investment you all have made in this in terms of just the size of staff and how it's grown, I think, over the last 10 years. But let me know what the time frame is, just to give some folks a sense of how much your job has grown as you've come into this role.
So I have to say, I took over this job. I have been very fortunate to have a very supportive dean, a couple of deans in my 11 years here. In 2015, I started this program, and there were I had three individuals. I had one running our K-12 group, one doing our professional ed group, and one we had just started our academies. And as of last week, I have 75. So in 10 years' time, we have grown up. So it has grown as our programs have grown. So we are real excited. I have a fantastic group. I have anything from PhD engineers down to a lot of school teachers, a lot of professionals out in the field. So we have just a wide array of fantastic individuals that work for us.
Well, Cindy, I appreciate you allowing us to sort of a deep dive and into what you're doing there, and hopefully some folks can pull away some ideas for their own institutions in their own states, and perhaps look at what you all are doing and learn more about it as well.
Love to do that, and if anybody has any questions, you can find me pretty easily. So happy to answer any questions of, hey, I've started from nothing, and like I said, I've been very, very lucky, and some things cost quite a bit of money, and some things we do don't cost very much at all. We've learned to make a lot out of nothing.
I appreciate that note too. Well, that's Cindy Lawley with Texas A&M University, which is one of our sponsors for the discussions today at CronFest about the workforce. Cindy, thanks again very much. Appreciate that.